Well, good evening. Thank you, Dave, for that gracious invitation. And coming from Mr. Relationship, I can't believe the number of people Dave knows. I run into people around the country who know Dave Dios all over the place. As Dave said, I've had the privilege of working as a professional peacemaker. Actually, I'm a lawyer and a professional mediator. And I've worked in hundreds and hundreds of disputes over the last 33 years, and across the spectrum. Legal disputes, church disputes. And the thing that I actually deal with, get this to I keep running into relational stupidity. It keeps me busy. I won't have any work to do in heaven because there won't be stupid, sinful people in heaven. But I could regale you all night with the story. I'll just tell you one. Just when I think I've seen the extreme of relational stupidity, I see a new case. Two couples met each other at their church through a fertility class. This is for couples who aren't able to conceive children. They're getting together to encourage and pray for one another as they deal with this challenge. And they got to be good friends. One night they went out after the meeting to have pie and coffee, and they're just chatting. And one of them just sort of jokingly said, it's interesting. We as couples can't conceive, but between the two couples, we actually do have the capacity to conceive. Now, some of you are shaking your heads. This is not made up. So they decided to join forces, as it were, to conceive a child. Now, that alone is stupid, sinful, etc. But the real stupidity was before they conceived the child, they didn't discuss who gets the baby. And so a baby comes along, and suddenly you've got this ugly lawsuit. You've got the church involved with church discipline. You've got the local TV news station outside filming the church. It was terrible. And I could go on and on and on about all the things I've seen over the years, mediating and intervening in these kind of cases. Hundreds of divorces, church splits, child sexual abuse, you name it, I've seen it. And what I've wanted to do, 3 years ago, I stepped down from Peacemaker Ministries, which is really reacting to conflict. If you've got a serious conflict, they are great people to call. What I want to do is get upstream of conflict. One of the things I said for years is an ounce of prevention is worth about $100,000 worth of attorney's fees. And if you can prevent conflict, it's so much better. So I want to introduce you to a concept. I want you to walk out the door tonight with some principles you can practice. And I mean, literally Monday morning, if you take this seriously, I'm about to tell you, you can walk into your office and in about 2 hours, a lot of your coworkers are going to say, what happened to him over the weekend? There could be such a dramatic change in just a very short time. So I want to take a survey, first of all. How many of you have heard of a concept called emotional intelligence? Lift your hands real high. Okay, that's a high percentage in the business community. More of you are aware of it. Emotional intelligence, the term was coined in 1920. Not much happened with it for many, many years, but in 1985, a man named Dan Goleman wrote a New York Times bestseller called Emotional Intelligence. And it was on the New York Times bestseller list for 18 months. He wrote another book, was also a bestseller. It's an incredible concept. It's the idea that like we have IQ, our intelligence quotient, which is our capacity to learn and to assimilate information, intelligence or emotional intelligence is your capacity to manage your emotions and to read and interact constructively with the emotions of other people. Now, this is a skill most of us have not deliberately cultivated. And there are now companies in the United States spending millions of dollars training managers, HR people on these skills of emotional intelligence. Basically, what we're talking about is understanding how does the brain work? How do the emotions, which are embedded in the limbic part of the brain, how do they interact with the reasoning, the rational part of the brain up in the prefrontal cortex? And if you understand how they work, it's fascinating. In the last 3 years, I've done more study on the brain, and every time I do it, I end up worshiping the God who made this incredible organ and how it works. But at the same time, as I teach pastors all around the world, and I ask questions what they know about the brain, the average pastor hasn't studied 5 minutes to know how the brain works. And yet, when they step into a pulpit, one of the main things they're trying to do is affect the way people think and behave. And it's embedded in the brain. So I hope one thing I do tonight is launch you on a journey of studying and reading about the brain. It will lead you to worship because the God who made this brain is so incredible. And Dan Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence, is a great starting point. The simple thing I'll tell you about the brain, we spent hours on these concepts in our seminars, but I'll summarize everything about the emotional part of the brain in this simple diagram. As emotions go up, rational thinking goes down. We've all experienced this in real life, but there's physiological reasons for it. Part of the reason is sensations from your organs get to the limbic system, particularly the amygdala, before they get to the neocortex. So they come up here, get to the emotional part of your brain, and then they have to journey a little bit further up to the part where you have rational thinking and impulse control. And those few nanoseconds give your amygdala time to kick into action. We call it amygdala hijacking. How many of you have said something to your spouse or to a child that before the last word was even out of your mouth, you wish you hadn't said it? I mean, it goes out, you go, oh, I wish I hadn't said that. That's amygdala hijacking. And it's a very dangerous thing. The other thing that happens in the brain with intense emotions, when you are highly emotional, fearful, angry, bitter, the things Russell talked about, those emotions cloud our thinking. And there's a physiological reason for it. Ultimately, it's sin that has come in and taken this beautiful organ and twisted a little bit how it works. So there's a sin component where all of creation is slightly twisted. But there's a physiological dynamic that goes on. When you're intensely emotional, what's happening is your amygdala is using up so much blood. Your brain is fueled by oxygen, and it gets oxygens through blood. So the blood vessels in your limbic system expand, so more blood gets there to fuel these emotions. And guess what? The blood vessels to the prefrontal cortex constrict. And just at the time you need maximum rational thinking and impulse control, you actually can lose 10 to 15 IQ points. So you can really say when you get emotional, you get stupid. You get really stupid. Now, what emotional intelligence is helping us to do, and I call emotional intelligence, is common grace insights into how we work. And so even non-Christians out there who don't read the Bible, who don't believe in God, are still gaining some very helpful insights into how our brains function. And the classic EI format is in front of you on the screen. There's basically 4 skills they focus in on. Personal competency has to do with your self-awareness. How do you read your emotions? And then how do you manage yourself? How do you manage them? Social competence is the other 2 skills. How do you read the emotions of other people? You might have a meeting of your executive team at the office. You throw out an idea, and one of your executives just suddenly folds his arms and pulls back from the seat, and his face gets really hard. If you don't pick up on that you suddenly have a ticking time bomb sitting at the table, you may have some serious problems in 3 or 4 minutes or 3 or 4 days because there's some emotion that's been built up. And so the social awareness and then the relationship management, those are the 4 classic skills. And you can invest a lot of time and effort and money learning how to improve those skills. One of the best EI training organizations in the country is just located down in San Diego. It's called Talent Smart. They work with like 3/4 of the Fortune 500 companies. I'm actually a certified Talent Smart EI instructor. Very valuable training. I commend it to you. But there's a problem. Well, first of all, let me tell you one of the benefits. Study after study is showing concrete bottom line financial benefits from increasing EI. One of the studies found that the partners in a multinational consulting firm who had above average emotional intelligence brought in on the average of $1.2 million more per year. Now you can think why that would be. Someone who's got really good relational skills, they're going to attract good people. They're going to trigger teamwork. They're going to stimulate creativity. They're going to deal with conflict effectively. There's lots of good things that go on. They're going to win clients over, understand their needs, meet their needs more effectively. Lots of things happen when people have got high EI. So that alone is the reason that big corporations like McDonald's and FedEx, IBM spend lots of money teaching EI. But if you think of that diagram, there's something missing. There's something serious missing in emotional intelligence. God, conflict resolution, and simplicity. There's no mention of God. If you read all the major writers on EI, what you'll see is Dan Goleman is respectful toward the fact that there is a God, or that people believe there's a God, and those religious beliefs influence them. But there's no direct reference to or reliance on God. Certainly no doctrine of God, doctrine of man, doctrine of sin, doctrine of redemption, no gospel. So it's missing the key component of relationships, the one who designed relationships. Most EI training also stays away from conflict resolution. That's a little bit too messy. And also, in many of the programs, there's a lack of simplicity. If you read Goleman's book, you'll come away going, wow, this guy is really smart. But then you think about it, and you realize he's an academic. And you walk away impressed with his intelligence, but you go into the office on Monday, you're going, so what do I do? What do I do? So I want to give you an alternative system, and it's out of the Bible. And we just call it relational wisdom. It's got three major dynamics: a God dimension, a self dimension, and another dimension. We've got to be God aware, God engaging. What do we know about God? Who is he? What is he like? How do we respond to him faithfully, consistently, obediently? And then you have the other components which are found in the EI model. How do we read ourselves, understand ourselves, engage ourselves? How do we read other people? So there is a more full-orbed model for you that brings in the creator of relationships. You're going to find these concepts all over the Bible. Relational wisdom is found virtually. You could take any passage in the Bible and plug it into one of those components up there. Because everything in the Bible is either talking about God, how we manage ourselves, or how we engage our neighbors. And you'll see in this passage in Ephesians 4, 30 through 32, actually all three of those dynamics are in one passage. It starts with a focus on God. Do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you're sealed for the day of redemption. So there's a God awareness component. It then focuses in on what do we know about ourselves. So you get rid of all bitterness. We have to read our heart. I'm bitter. I'm angry. I'm jealous. I'm envious. And we have to get rid of those things, manage those things. And then it focuses on how we engage other people. Be kind to one another. Kindness means you see someone's needs, you understand, you have compassion. You discern those things, you respond to them, forgiving. And then it comes all the way back up to God again. And those red passages in the Bible, theologians call the indicative passages. They indicate who God is, what he's like. They're the motivational passages. If you don't get the red passages, then the only thing that motivates you on the rest of it is self-interest. If I treat other people well, they'll do something good for me. And that's what most secular training is. It's self-interest. But for Christians, our interest is exalting God, knowing God, delighting God, pleasing God. It's like Jesus said, the one who sent me is with me. He's never left me alone, for I always do what pleases him. That should be our motivation to do this. Relational wisdom, in essence, in real simplicity, is simply the ability to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. It's the essence of relationship, is loving God, knowing God, engaging God, and then spilling out into the world and loving other people the same way. Now, we do a lot of training in Christian-based companies or Christian-owned companies, and we can come in and actually present what we call a values-based version of this, because there's limitations on what you can teach in the marketplace. And you can talk about, instead of being God-aware, God-engaged, and being values-aware, because we are motivated and guided by our life values. And so it opens a way to start a discussion. What are your values? Someone goes out to lunch with a buddy who's thinking of divorcing his wife. You might say, well, what are your values? Do you believe that marriage is just a transitory thing? Oh, no, marriage is a serious thing. And then suddenly he's thinking of divorcing her, and you find out there's a big gap between his aspirational values, what he aspires to, and his actual values. And that can open up the door to a really great discussion. Where do values come from? Are they just conveniences we can change at will? Is there a source of ultimate values that are unchangeable? Can I share with you where my values come from? So there's evangelistic opportunities as we engage people in the world talking about real life relational issues in their life. It opens a door to talk to them about the one who's the source of all good relationships. The other thing I mentioned is that EI lacks a conflict resolution component, and relational wisdom is built on that. With 30 years of conflict resolution, I know that no matter what you do, you're still going to have relation problems. No matter how good you get, no matter how empathetic you get, you will still stumble at times. And so you can bring in all the concepts we developed with Peacemaker Ministries over the years about confession and correction, reconciliation, communication, negotiation, all the things we need to do to basically pull people back inside the circle. Because conflict is where we fly outside the circle of relational wisdom. The third problem I talked about is simplicity. How can we learn some things where we can really easily practice these concepts, take them out, and actually start practicing them in real life? One of the things we love to do is to develop acrostics that you can remember very easily and practice, because Remember I said when you get really emotional, you lose a lot of your impulse control? That's where you've got to have very simple principles you go right back to without a lot of deep, heavy thinking, get back on the right track. So we've got 4 acrostics. And do we hand out the pamphlets yet, Ryan? Okay. If you would do that so everyone has one, there's a pamphlet you'll all get before you leave. And inside are these 4 acrostics: the SOG plan, GPS, read, and serve. These are so simple. You can start doing them tonight with your spouse and Monday with your employees. So let me just quickly give you a very quick introduction, then I'm going to give you a demonstration. The read acrostic is simply, if you want to become more self-aware, self-engaging, is learn to read yourself accurately, to recognize your emotion. What am I feeling right now? I'm nervous. I'm angry. I'm bitter. I'm suspicious. Okay, where's it coming from? Evaluate the source of that emotion. Why do I feel that way? Then the next one is to anticipate, okay, what happens if I follow this emotion? You're in a meeting at the office, one of your employees speaks disrespectfully to you in front of a bunch of other members of your staff. It irritates you, it offends you, it wounds your pride, and you're tempted just to lash out, remind them who's boss. But the minute you do that, you're going to lose the respect of other people. So how do you control those things? How do you direct those things in a constructive direction? Very simple thing. READ. And yet I work with people right now who've had tremendous relational issues in their families, in the workplace, in their churches. Just simply practicing READ gives them a track to run on. The other acrostic we spend a lot of time teaching about is to serve other people. If you want to become better at reading other people, engaging other people, here's 5 simple steps. Now, the first one a lot of people sort of blow off, smile. You have no idea the power of a smile. There's an article, I'm going to give you all a link to a page made just for you at Convene with some blog posts you can dig into more easily, but there's a blog about the power of a smile. It's huge. I've got a friend who owns a big company. He's got employees who are on the phone all the time. And he's got a mirror in front of their desk and a sign above it says, smile and dial. Because did you know that people can tell if you are smiling on the other end of a phone line with 90% accuracy? It changes the shape of the back of your mouth. It changes the look of your face. It interacts with the other person, what's called mirror neurons. When you smile and they see your smile, neurons fire in their brain like they're smiling, and pretty soon they are smiling, and they feel real good, and they're glad you called. It's amazing, the power of a smile. People go through our training. Their first assignment is to go into grocery stores, and the minute they walk in the door, smile. As you walk around the store, you don't look down the floor, you look at people going down the aisle, and you smile. It's amazing, the effect that a smile can have on other people. You've got ideas of exploring, asking questions. What's going on? How are you doing? Digging in deeper, reading body language, listening to the tone of the voice. Now, you could see a friend at Starbucks and say, how you doing, Joe? And one day he might say, oh, I'm okay. Another day he might say, oh, I'm okay. Those are 2 completely different answers. That slight hesitation is sending a big, big message if you learn how to read it. Reconcile, doing peacemaking, resolving issues, valuing people, expressing admiration and thanks to them, and encouraging. It's the idea, the reason the eagle is up there, the image we want to have in our mind is every time you talk to somebody, is that when that conversation is over, it's like there's wind under their wings. That they love to talk to you. They love seeing you coming down the hallway. I've got a friend, Dave Diaz is one of them. When my phone rings and I see Dave Diaz's name, my heart lifts before I even say hello, because I know every time I talk to that man, there's going to be wind under my wings. Just think if all the Christians in our churches, they went out on Monday morning, they were out going out and putting wind under the wings of everyone they meet, in the workplace, their neighborhood, family, gatherings, things like that. Let me give you a quick demonstration. One of the ways we like to teach these principles is with Hollywood clips. And I want to show you a clip. This is from a movie called Cinderella Man, Russell Crowe. It's during the Depression. He's lost his job. He's penniless. He's living in a tenement house. He's out looking for work every day, often comes home, no money. You can imagine the frustration, the sense of guilt, the sense of failure, all this stuff building up in him that would make most men a ticking time bomb. And the first person that offends them, they would just explode at them. Watch how Russell Crowe handles a crisis with his son. As you watch it, watch for his body language, note his tone of voice, note his posture and physical placement toward his son, and pay attention to his pronouns. Do you watch your pronouns? Watch the power of pronouns.
Hey, Dad.
Hey,
No shifts today, Dad.
what are you doing, son?
I'm being good. I'm being quiet. I'm being behave.
Great.
Daddy! Daddy!
Hey, Rosie Chick, how you doing?
Daddy! Jay stole!
What?
Jay stole.
What's all this about?
See? It's a salon.
Young lady, your brother's in enough trouble without you telling on him. You understand? It's from the butcher's. And he won't say a word about it, will you, Jay? Will you, Jay?
Okay, pick it up. Let's go. Do not test me, boy. Right now.
Howard, stay here.
Marty Johnson had to go away to Delaware to live with his uncle.
Why?
His parents didn't have enough money for them to eat.
Yeah, well, things ain't easy at the moment, Jay. You're right. There's a lot of people worse off than what we are. And just because things ain't easy, that don't give you the excuse to take what's not yours, does it? That's stealing, right? We don't steal. No matter what happens, we don't steal. Not ever. You got me? Are you giving me your word?
Yes,
Go on.
I promise.
And I promise you, we will never send you away. It's okay, kid. You got a little scared, I understand. It's okay.
You are going to have opportunities like that every week. With a spouse, with a child, with a neighbor, with a coworker, with a partner, with a client. There are people out there who are hurting and they put on a mask. They will often give little subtle hints because they don't dare really expose themselves and put themselves at risk that you might reject them. But there are hints coming at us all the time about people who are struggling and afraid and needing encouragement. If you have learned the relational skills God's given to you in His Word, if you have asked the Holy Spirit to give you a heightened sensitivity to read those little cues, those little signs, and even to the point, you notice at the end of it, He says, just because things are hard, it doesn't give you, second person singular, the excuse to steal, because we don't steal. No matter what happens, we don't. Now, why is that significant? Here's a dad that understands this little boy's greatest fear is not being hungry, it's being separated from his family. That's what he dreads. And so even as he reassures him, he even uses pronouns that say, we are in this together. We are sticking together. We're going to ride this storm, and nothing is going to separate us. Words have power, folks. The actual words, the way we deliver them, the tone of voice, these are skills we can learn to do massive, massive ministry. So I'm going to just close with this, is if you'd like to learn more, if you'd like some practical free lessons on empathy and compassion and reading body language and all those things, just go to that URL. There's a special page there just for Convene with a number of links on some of these things on why smiling is so important and all that. And you can dig in deeper for free. Just dig into it. There's things you can practice there in your business, with your spouse, with your kids, and eventually take them into the workplace. God bless.